start with entertaining motion to approve the minutes from November 12, 2015.
Move that we accept the minutes.
Second. Oh, by the way, before we jump right into that, I just want to remind you, we have a new minute taker tonight. And until she gets learned, do you know all of our names? Should we do a quick introduction? Mike?
We're trying to invite Denise, Rick, Mark, Jeff.
Stacy.
Diane, I'm sorry.
Stacy.
Okay. Thanks, welcome aboard. Hopefully we'll keep it nice and even for you tonight.
Okay.
Were there any changes to make to the minutes?
I have a typo.
Oh, please.
This second from the last paragraph on the first page, beginning with Chair Briggs, said that he felt the town, that should be town, not home. And school would work together.
We have a copy of this here. There's a packet here.
Enjoy it. Any other changes? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes? Opposed? Thank you. With that, we'll move right on to public input. I'd like to go ahead and open the floor to anybody who has anything they would like to share or express on the school board.
You guys do a great job.
Oh, and state your name and where you're from, so you can get into the minutes.
Would you guys like to sit down?
No, absolutely.
Nervous and like, school board people.
Wait, before you get started, I apologize. I've been battling a cold for 3 days, so my ears are like goldfish balls right now. So if you're speaking and you want me to hear, you have to speak up a little bit.
Sure.
Thanks.
Good evening, and thank you, Principal Nanicelli and board members, for your dedication and service to the kids in this community. My name is Ed Bryants. I live at 35 Mountain Drive here in Marlborough. I have a second grader here at this school and also a sophomore at Keene High. I'm also the Marlborough Town Cable Commissioner and appointee for the public access channel at Cheshire Television, and I'm filming this tonight. I believe this will provide transparency and accessibility to interested community members to be informed of discussion outcome of tonight's meeting. I wrote this down so I don't forget.
No, that's perfect.
I'd like to take a moment to publicly thank John Fletcher for his years served protecting our way of life in the armed forces, and many more years serving his community. It is as a result of one in particular of his services to the community that I address you. The annual Christmas tree lighting ceremony has brought neighbors together for many years, and it's always been an act of goodwill supported but not sanctioned by the Marlborough School and SAU29. This year, the word Christmas was censored. When I got wind of this, I became highly agitated and reached out to resources and organizations and legal experts, as well as media, to bring light to what I considered to be a twisting of rules and constitutional interpretations to reach a political correctness that by its implementation actually signaled an intentional omission of our American culture and history. I've provided several pages to the board from the legal team at ADF. I give those to Mr. Nanicelli. I hope they made it around. That's Alliance Defending Freedom, to better explain rights and the school's role. I hope you've read them and are clear as to where Mr. Money's decision perhaps was not necessary nor beneficial to the community as a whole. I know this is now a lesson learned moving forward, and have no doubt the superintendent was doing what he thought appropriate and within the guidelines of his position. I believe the backlash of this decision serves to move us forward. It's my opinion, and I suggest in the future that these decisions are left to those most closely associated with the families and kids in this immediate community. The only sanctions or denial for a flyer should happen when the material or event is either non-age appropriate or unrelated to the region's populace. I have complete confidence in Mr. Nanicelli and his ability to determine flyers for non-school sanctioned or sponsored events. If denied, only then should it move forward to the board or superintendent approval if the sponsor feels it's necessary. Again, I'd like to thank the board and superintendent to their attention to the concerns raised, and pray for wisdom and find a solution and celebrate our culture, our values, diversity, and educational growth of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public input? All right. close this section of the meeting and move on to our bills and manifests. Mark, have you had a chance to review? So I would entertain a motion to approve check numbers 4007814 through 4007859 in the amount of $63,525.49. Second. Any questions?
I know, 63,520.
$63,525.49.
Thank you.
Any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, bills paid. It just gets more exciting from here. All right, then we'd like to move on to reports from the business administrator, who are told wouldn't be able to make it tonight because she, like I, is battling illness. Apparently she's losing. But Mr. Millay has at least the bottom line from our financial report, if not all the details.
Actually, it's only a $250 change from last month. You're still projecting the $19,276, coming in $19,276 on the budget. The one item that changed was the tuition line. We had available $250 last month. That's projecting as zero because I'm assuming there was another tuition student that had to appear. That's, or maybe that was a transfer of funds. I don't have the details here with me, but I will certainly make sure to get that for you. But basically, it's almost identical to what we were projecting.
Which was, what'd you say, almost $20,000 shortfall?
So what we've been doing is to provide some consistency with the financial reports, is to just accept them officially. So we'll be doing that as Janelle and I have been going around. We've listed them as action items. So.
I see that, I was noticing it was in the new column.
Yes, sir.
Well, so even with a limited review, motion to accept the financial report.
Based on his verbal?
Who's that? Based on the verbal report of a $19,000 surplus.
Right, that's all we've received, so I'm willing to do that.
A second.
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion on the verbal $19,000 surplus? Right. All those in
Well,
favor?
it's in detail. But that's
I'm
okay.
searching, I'll
We'll wait till
censor.
next one.
Her apologies.
Yeah, I hope she feels better.
All those in favor of accepting the financial report?
Aye.
Opposed? Does that mean the tuition rate also isn't with us?
Fortunately, I should have that. I just have to find it, or I can pull that up from what I do. I'm told that that being emailed or being sent directly to the board, but I do have what was approved by Keenan.
And we can always bump this to next month too, because I don't believe we have a tuition payment that would even be made between.
We might get a bill in December, but it's not going to come out.
Yeah.
It will not come out next June.
It would affect, I mean, as long as we have it in time for our budget meeting on Saturday.
We can certainly have it there.
Yeah, because it's,
I apologize, I only got updated. at
yeah,
after
I know
5
she
o'clock.
canceled moments ago. All right, so we'll go ahead and delay that one. We can bring it back up for our special meeting on Saturday, as that will affect our budget anyway. Except at that point. All right, then I'd like to move over to reports from the principal, including our project adventure update. I see our guest speakers out in the audience up there. How would you like to start?
Well, some of that, I actually have two live reports, so in the interest of time, I'll let you, read my update, if you have questions on anything that we're doing in the report, exactly, but we'll start with Project Adventure, and then we'll move there to talk about it as well.
So I just made some bullet point highlights. We are currently up to about 60 students a day in after school in Marlborough. We're running 4 to 5 clubs a day. Currently, we have kids on campus joining us twice a week for a cooking club in middle school. And we're also doing a sock monkey club with kids on campus. We recently did a locally raised, grown, or made Thanksgiving raffle basket where we raised $850 and had local produce, the turkey, everything donated from local CSAs and farms, which was a great community building fundraiser. We had our fall festival in late October. Mike made a guest appearance when our smoke detectors went off. But last year we had about 75 people attend. This year we had over 250 attend.
People waiting to get back in.
It was very successful. We had a zombie run in the hallways. That's why the smoke detector went off. The fog machine set it off by accident. In Harrisville, we ran the same event with 75 people who came. One of our goals through our SIPPUS evaluation was to do more family classes. And in January, we will be hosting a family photography course every Saturday for 2 hours with Steve Hooper from the Keene Sentinel and Keene State College. And he'll be doing classes with older students and their parents on how to take the best pictures, but we also imagine if families come with younger kids, it will be more of a play date and how to photograph your family while they're playing. We open it up with even smartphones or iPads, so it can be for anyone, and we do have cameras available for families. And when we return, we will be kicking off our 3rd session of clubs for the year out of, I think we have 6 sessions, so the year's really flying by. Any questions?
Any questions for Fran?
All right.
Thank you. Congratulations on kicking off another school year and all of that fun stuff.
Thank you. I did have our new newsletter with the clubs, if anyone is interested.
How are we doing financially?
Financially, well, we are on track for this year. We will once again get cut next year. I think another 10% next year. And we're forming a committee to really look at sustainability. In the past week, said it should be the advisory board. However, who makes up our advisory board really are community members and some parents. So I spoke with Janelle and Mr. Nanaselli and Deanna in Harrisville. We feel like we really need a core group of people who understand the financials of the school and the community. So we would love a school board member who is interested to serve on that committee. I can see it in her face that she wants to be. We do have a school board member from Harrisville who has volunteered. And if anyone is interested, I expect that we will be meeting early January.
Or is it daytime meetings or evening meetings? Are you doing
I would think early afternoon. We'll have to see what the majority of everyone, but Janelle is on that committee also, so I would imagine it would be daytime.
So it's during the workday. I would consider being on it if you need a board member from school.
That would be great.
Okay.
And if anyone has any recommendations for family classes in Marlborough, I would love any suggestions on what you feel the community would benefit from.
I think based on our wellness committee, we'd like to have some kind of good snacks. Yeah, the cookie.
The chocolate chip cookie?
Yeah, that was an area that we found was lacking in our school. But things brought from home aren't always as nutritious as they could be, so maybe we could help by showing them, giving ideas or having a cooking class on how to make great snacks. I don't know.
I did just have a meeting with UNH Cooperative Extension, and a woman did a presentation from the New Hampshire Food Bank that if we have over 40% free and reduced students in our after-school program, they can come to a 7-session cooking class and meal planning with families at no cost to us, and they'll provide the food and everything. We are not right at the 40% mark. That's the give and take. You have the families who can pay for the after school, but there's a lot of free resources if you have the other families. So who knows, maybe after January our numbers will go up a little bit. We could not pay for the service, I know
No,
that's
and
for that.
also, Keene State Acquisition Program, maybe they have some people that could do, a class on it for part of their school.
Okay.
That would be great. We were just approved to take interns from Keene State.
Okay. Glad I want to, if I think of others, I'll let you know.
I think cooking for families would be,
It would be nice, I think.
like the best for, I think we should do a couponing class too for parents.
Have clip coupons or?
Have you seen the extreme couponers? So they can get healthy things. But thank you, I'll let you know how it goes with the cooking setup.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Also invited Maureen here to talk to us about data, or findings of
Oh, it looks different from here.
I'm gonna wait a moment because I just want to be relevant to whatever I'm talking about. Well, this one is. Can you do that one? All right, so, hello, everybody. How are you today? It's your favorite time of year when I come and just talk about data with you. Actually, before I start, I want to say I had the pleasure of bringing 4 8th graders from Marlborough to join us today, and they represented this school so incredibly well, and they were so polite and gracious with the people, so I'm really proud of the representation that your 8th graders are putting out into the community, and they love it, they love it. Okay, so I was going to start. We really have 3 acronyms to talk about today: the NWEA, the SBAC, and the NEC. Okay. So it's like all that. So I wanted to start with the fall NWEA math score results. First through 8th grade take a reading and math test, and so what I did is this shows the percentage of students at Marlborough who score above the 40th percentile on the 2 tests. So we have 2nd through 8th, and it just gives you an idea about, they kind of say that 25th to 75th would be average, but a kind of a cutoff that we have traditionally used is that 40th, below the 40th, we're a little more concerned. So it gives you an idea about each grade level and sort of where the performance is. If you've seen this before, we have this kind of thing at Marlborough that's a little unlike other schools, whereas our middle school typically outperforms our elementary school. This year we did see a little bit of a drop in reading, and I wonder if it's because we had such a strong focus on math last year. So we didn't have one class 100% for their students was one grade level was all above the 40th percentile. So that is the result of the reading. Any questions about that one?
Which test is that?
This is the MAP test and the WEA. Yep. We did not, the SAU made a decision, SAU29 stopped giving the reading test in K2 this year, and we're using running records instead to figure out and track their growth and progress. But we did have a 2nd grade teacher who wanted to have her students take it. And they are doing so. Sorry, now here is the percent of students who, I've talked this with you all before, the way it takes the typical growth of students, all over the country that take this test, and it looks at their score, the beginning score, and they look at what the typical growth should be for that student, like the year's growth. And then we say if they made that typical growth, then they met their growth target. So here is, so this would be like the instruction they received in first, you know, they took it in the beginning of first grade, they took it in the beginning of second grade. And it shows that they made that growth target. So here are the number of students that made their growth targets in reading. And if you, just to give you a little bit of perspective, the handout I gave you shows every school in the SAU and the percent of students, it's a little small, the percent of students who did or didn't make their growth targets in math and reading. So you can see that, you know, we're looking at reading here, so that's the ones below. One school is 61, the highest is 61% made their growth target overall at that school. And then like the lowest is, what, 44? So it sort of falls in like the 40 to 60% range is typical for this SAU for the percent of students who make their growth targets. So we have some really strong examples here of a lot of students in the class making growth targets. And then we have others that we need to look at the instruction and figure out what, you know, what's impeding the majority of those students or what you would expect to see that number make their growth targets. Do we have any questions about this one?
So would there be non-academic reasons why they didn't make the growth target?
Yeah, I mean, there could be, there's so many things to think about. It's a one-day test. That student could have a ton of absences. That student could have been sick that year. That student could have a definite, the demographics, I think, play a part. But I do think it's interesting to look at the schools, because you can kind of look at school, you know, in here you kind of look at schools that might have a similar demographic to Marlborough and see what percent of their school overall. And then you can see where Marlborough falls in our averages. So, you know, if you look at the graph, the red is did not make and the green is made. So for reading, we're kind of even with most. We're sort of in the middle. For math, we see, again, this trend, it's incredible how clear it is here. This is the number of percent of students that made their growth. Oh, no, sorry. This is in math, the percent of students that were above the 40%. So we kind of had that 1 year, and then they just kind of slowly raise up. And then for the percent of students that met their growth targets in math, we see that we did, I was really happy with this. We had one class that was rather large, and I think it was a struggle there. We broke it apart. We've got some smaller classes now. So then if you look at this one, and you look at Marlborough here, you can see that Marlborough had the overall, the whole SAU, the most students percent of students to make their growth targets in math. So that was really great to see.
So what kind of things call you to action here, right? You know, it's
Yeah,
interesting
so-
information, but what?
Yeah, so in math, 50% is okay. But, to me, over half the class below the 40th, to me tells more. So like one thing we're doing this year is really looking at the way we're setting up our math times, the way we're formatively assessing, looking at specific teachers and how they're doing things. We are, like one teacher because we have 2 days a week where we have 2 unified arts. And they had bumped their math down, because it was like during their math time. And it was kind of like, so it was 3 days, so we're kind of revamping schedules, looking at that, we'll continue with the number talks. Can you give any other examples, the way we're
Well, I think
responding?
that just the fact that you meet with these individuals, today.
We do, yeah.
Looking to see what we need to do with specific kids, but also
Set
maybe
goals, specific
generally
goals.
instructionally.
Because it seems, because I remember from the reports last year that it was the second grade that had the lowest.
Well, this would be similar, because I was here in the
So
spring.
then those second graders are now in third grade, and again, that group has got the lowest percentage.
For which? Here?
Well, that is low, but the one you just showed, right there,
Oh, yeah,
okay?
yeah, they're
Now,
current
last
third
year,
graders,
when
yeah.
they were in second grade, they were also, they were down in like the 5%.
Because it was what I showed you in spring, what I showed you then was a spring to spring comparison, right? So it's
Right.
sort of
So the
same.
second graders are rated way down, and then this year, them being in the third grade, they're
Same group of
still,
kids.
it's the
Same group of kids.
So,
Well, no,
yeah,
yes, it's the same group of kids, but what I'm saying is it's still based on the same instructional year. Because I showed you that it's basically almost the same data, because the other one was fall to fall. I mean, this one is fall to fall, so it's still based on last year, it was spring to spring. So it's not like they still are, it's just like they didn't learn anything over the summer, but you wouldn't necessarily expect that.
right.
Yeah. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right, but I'm saying that there seems to be a group now that needs to be concerned.
Yeah, so and so those kids, yeah, so we're looking at that, we're doing some reteaching, we are doing some extra double dosing with those kiddos in math this year. We looked really closely at like a prerequisite skills assessment, and we did an item analysis, figuring out exactly like where the holes were. We're really trying to fill in with those holes. We have a computer math program that you all approved last year that we're starting to use, and we're hoping that's gonna be able to be just a little bit of a extra bump too. So we're definitely watching them and really tracking. We've been, after that item analysis, like on their prerequisite skills from the year before, we've been like looking at it every 3 weeks. How are they doing? Do they have it? Do they have the regrouping now? How are they doing with fluency and those kinds of things? So we're really, Title I teachers, myself, the third grade teachers, are talking about it a lot. Yeah. So this was really, I thought, I was very, very, very pleased with this too, well, with the reading. So this is students with IEPs, and the percent of students that have an IEP who made their growth targets on the math test. So that is really great, because I think when you look at historical data, when you look at national data, those kids are the ones who were the ones not looking at that. And if they don't make at least a year's growth, then they're going to fall further behind. Math, we have some moves to go. I think the structures to support those kids in reading are stronger at Marlborough. So this year, really looking at how can we do the same for those kids in math.
So when we talk about their growth target, is there a specific growth target for each student? It's not that the whole group needs to get to here.
No, it's specific for the students. And you could have a student in the class that scored very high, who might only need to make an incremental growth. Because, and so when you look at a first grader, they usually need to make a 17-point growth in their grit score. But then you look at an 8th grader, they only need to make 2, because it becomes more incremental. So now SBAC, ready? So here is, what I kind of went back and forth on whether to share the level 3 and 4 scores, or to share the level 1 and 2 scores. And I fell on sharing level 1 and 2. So SBAC does not use the same terms others use, like proficient or anything like that. They just call it level 1, 2, 3, 4, no labels or anything. If you want to think about what it is, it sort of goes along lines of like substantially below, at, and above. So the way I have it is I thought you'd be interested to see Marlborough compared to the SAU compared to the state, just to give you some reference points. So if you look, this is overall students that were 1 and 2. So 3 would be like what you would consider proficient. So here we want to see the blue bar to be lower. Okay, so you can see, so here the SAU and the state are here. This is the percent of students that were that level 1 and 2. And then Marlborough is the blue line, percent of students that were 1 and 2. So again, we use these, just another point, we don't dwell on it, it's not like we change our curriculum based on one test, but we use it to look at teaching practices and be reflective, on where our areas of strength and weakness are.
That's ELA, correct?
This is reading, yeah, ELA. I should have called it ELA, measure reading, it measures research, writing, so
So is this actionable like within a year? Like it's, clearly not a judgment on anybody's capabilities, but is this something where you can say the 4th grade is struggling? With
the current 5th.
Yeah, the current 4th grade is struggling, and we have an opportunity to.
Well, it'll be the current 5th
adjust
grade.
style?
Be the current 5th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can use this and say, well, let's try some different
Yeah.
methods or something.
And we've talked a lot about it because, on paper and on other things, they're not necessarily struggling. Their fluency, we use so much data to look at. So I think that for us, our 5th grade teacher, I talk a lot about writing and how are they expressing themselves in writing. And I think that really got in the way. for those kiddos, and is kind of impeding them.
And I think probably just an overall disclaimer with these results is, remember, this is based on first time ever starting point, right? This is not telling the full picture of what's happening in the building
Yeah.
by any means. And what happened on the test day either. Certainly doesn't tell us, well, was it extremely hot that day, or were there distractions, was the internet working properly? It doesn't give us all of those variables. And the fact that it is only the first time starting point, for this assessment, is not a reflection of the school in any big way.
And I think it's important to mention sample size too, because, obviously this sample size is massive, this sample size is a class, right? So you have a class that let's just say theoretically you have a class that has, 4 kids diagnosed that really struggle with reading that are written language or, and those are in that sample. So it's even tough to look at it this way because the sample sizes are so different.
And I think one of the things I don't want to understate is the importance of taking these test scores and discussing with teachers, which Lauren does this, to try and figure out what does this mean. In the context of all the other information we have about students, what does this mean? And because that's when the best judgments are made versus in looking at the numbers saying, well, we must have an instructional issue, or we must have a performance issue based on, some other factor. Because you'll often hear a teacher looking at a student from the score saying, I know this student knows more than this, so what happened? Or, so that's the best I think we can do is take the time, have that dialogue with teachers and try to figure out what do we need. And it might be something different for different students. So, and I keep urging our staff to continue that, and that's probably one of the, I think, hugely valuable things that Maureen offers is taking the time to do that, using our team meeting for staff to discuss it, so we can figure out what it means and not just let a number launch us into some action where we don't know if we're really addressing the right issue or not. So it can be a combination of things. So we certainly want to rule out good instruction, and that's something that we're, certainly we professional development always try to improve.
So, and then here's the same thing, students that were level 1 and 2 for math.
It would be interesting to know in those blue bars how many kids we're talking about. I mean, if it's 13, and
So I
and we don't have to go through all of them.
well, I had, the printer was not cooperating with me, but I had something else that I wanted to print out. I have like the raw data itself, actual like numbers of kids, so you could see what that percentage is attached to. It also has the numbers of, I also don't wanna feel like I'm focusing on the 1 and 2s, we had kids that, but I do have that.
Well, in Gerard's point, I don't think we need to dwell on this data because it's the first time we've ever seen
Yeah.
these people.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
got the 3 and 4s in my report.
Okay. So the one thing we did, just as an example of what we do is we look, in the math, there's what they call 3 claims that are measured on this test. The concepts and procedures, problem solving, data and modeling, and then communication and reasoning. And then ELA is reading, speaking, listening, writing, and research.